Okay. Good morning, or I guess good afternoon, depending on where you are. Good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome. My name is Heather Bellini. I am the Columbia Business School class of 97, a founding member of the Women's Circle and a very proud board member to date. And I want to thank everybody for joining us today. It's a really interesting day, obviously, in the markets with SpaceX going on, but we've also got a really interesting panel. And after the release of Anthropic's Fable earlier this week, I think this topic is even more important than ever. But before we get started, for those who, you go to the next slide, sorry. For those who are newer to the Women's Circle, we are the home for all Columbia Business School alumni. And our mission is simple, but it's very ambitious. We want to promote and inspire women in business. We want to build a genuinely engaged and supportive community across the school, and we want to advocate for equity in business leadership. This year, our programming theme is leading in the edge of AI. It's obviously not just timely, but I think it's essential for all of us to really dig in and learn as much as we can about this. AI is obviously reshaping every industry we work in, and we believe women need to be leading the conversation, not watching from the sidelines. And I think this is a great group, and what Columbia taught all of us as grads is to do just that. So it brings me to today's session, which is responsible AI basics and responsibilities. And if you could go to the next page, I am delighted about today's conversation because I get to introduce not just an extraordinary expert on the topic, but a fellow Women's Circle board member, Didem Ün Ateş. She's Columbia Business School of 2005, and she is one of the most respected voices in responsible AI today. I mean, if you read her bio, it just keeps getting more and more impressive. But just to share a couple of things about her, she's an AI executive. She is an algorithm auditor. She's an executive coach. I don't know how you have time to do all of this, but she has more than 25 years of driving technology-led transformation just basically across every industry you can think of. She is the founder and CEO of LotusAI. She advises leading private capital firms, including my alma mater, Goldman Sachs, on how to scale AI with impact, integrity, and foresight. And there's more. And there's more. There is more. She is on the boards of Edge AI Foundation, the HG Foundation for Tech Advisory, the Wharton's AI Studio, and lucky for us, she gives her time to the Columbia Women's Circle. She also serves on the AI Council for Goldman Sachs Asset Management. Um, Fantastic recognition here. I feel like I should be watching CNBC and they list the street cred by when someone's speaking, except they would run out of space to put all of her accomplishments. She was named CEO of the Year for AI Advisory in the UK in 2025, and her firm was named Best AI Advisory Firm in 2025. So she's had a fantastic, not just 25 years, but really killing it over the last 12 months as well. And she's a Tech Woman 100 champion. Um, she's built her expertise across a variety of the most influential companies in technology. I'm not going to read them all, but like Microsoft, Accenture, EY, Capgemini. And so I guess, I could keep going on and on about you, Didem, at this point, but I think I should, at this point, given you've seen technology from every angle, you've built it, you've scaled it, you've governed it, and now you're advising clients on how to do it. I think you're the perfect person to really walk us through what responsible AI really means. I want to thank you for being with us, and I know all of us on the line really appreciate hearing from you and look forward to learning. So, with that, I'm going to let you take it away.
Thank you, Heather. As you were speaking, I felt like my cheeks are getting pink, red, purple. I will try to deliver. Let me try to, and happy Friday, everyone. Let me try to share my screen. And I do see a hand up already. Is that intentional, Deb? I saw a hand up in the chat. Do you already have a question? Happy to take it if that helps. Now I cannot see the chat, so I would be grateful if Teresa, Elisa, or Heather, yourself could stop me. And I do hope this is an interactive session. Please do stop me. We will try to stick to 30 minutes and then leave room for at least 15, 20 minutes for questions and answers because this topic always raises a lot of questions. And as Heather mentioned, I have been very privileged and very lucky to be a part of this journey, AI journey, I should say, for 15 years. And even the term responsible AI was coined by my mentor, one of my mentors at Microsoft in 2016, Eric Horowitz, who's their chief scientific officer today. So I have been working with Office of Responsible AI on a daily basis almost for years. And as Heather mentioned, I'm an algorithm auditor. What that means is I can look at AI systems and say, this is high risk, it needs intervention. Here are some options you could consider. So today, I thought we could go through some of the risks, and I'm sure everyone in this call is aware of some of these at least. But I want to give some real examples of irresponsible AI, what can go wrong and what goes wrong. And then we will have a very quick look at what's happening on the regulatory landscape. And then we will really define what responsible AI is because it may sound like a touchy-feely term, but it's actually very technical, very mathematical, and it's even harder to find responsible AI talent today than AI talent. So we'll come to that. And then, of course, I would love, we are all, Colombia, we want action, execution, and results. So we will definitely go through what can we do about this? How do we start or how do we improve our journeys in responsible AI and make sure every AI solution that we touch, we design, we deploy is a responsible AI solution and why. So that's what we are intending to cover today. I hope that makes sense. In terms of risks, as I mentioned, I mean, I could write encyclopedias about what could go wrong with this tech, and I'm a big fan, don't get me wrong. Absolutely, this is a fantastic technology, and it is so powerful for the right reasons, for good, when it's used for good, like health or whatever. That's not today's topic. Uh, so in terms of risk, as many of you can guess, this is just like, in a way, humans. We can't tell humans not to make mistakes. This is a technology that mirrors us. It's as simple as that. Sometimes I hear, oh, this is biased. AI is biased. AI is not biased. It's just software mimicking human brain and human data. We are the ones who are biased. We can't outsource that responsibility to a technology or an algorithm. So because our society is biased and has some issues and so on, it's reflecting and sometimes amplifying in this technology. The risks, could could be reputational, could be financial, legal, all of those. We'll get into those, some of the examples. So let's look at some general examples of what could go wrong. And I'm sure there's no, I'm not tied to any particular company, but actually the example that I want to give is not on this slide. And the reason, first of all, I should say that whatever we hear about irresponsible AI or incidents of AI going wrong, I would say I don't have the specific numbers, but I would think that it's not even 1 to 2% of what's out there. The reason being, when something goes wrong with AI, it's almost always by default private and confidential. So people are not supposed to talk about these things because it's related to data, it's related to humans, etc. So whatever we hear publicly is a really not even the tip of the iceberg. And as you can imagine, we are between friends here. That iceberg, that tip of the iceberg is suppressed even when it's public. All of that is suppressed for obvious reasons by PR armies, legal armies trying to protect the reputation of the company or the government. The example that I want to share today is very close to my heart. It's actually a heartbreaking example. So Spanish police, for example, apparently Spain had or has, I'm not sure about the latest figures, the highest rates of domestic violence in Europe. And with the best of intentions. And I note that it was with the best of intentions that the Spanish police department decided to come up with an algorithm to predict, to help victims and potential victims of domestic violence so that they could decrease this horrible pattern in the society. And of course, this is not specific to Spain. As we all know, this is a very common occurrence across the globe, as we all know. Unfortunately, they didn't do the impact assessments. They didn't do the put the guardrails. They didn't test properly, etc. All the things that they should have done. So this algorithm started mismatching, and people died. Um, and that's how serious this technology can get. It's not just financial risk. It's not just a hit on the EBITDA or whatever, but humans truly can get impacted, and they do. By the way, I will share resources at the end, but one thing that I did not share there, maybe we can circulate afterwards, is if any of you sees a situation that looks cheeky or suspicious or looks like an irresponsible AI case, we should be reporting it. There are databases called AI incident databases. For instance, MIT has one. There are like 4 or 5, but we can share this. We should definitely report as responsible citizens, as responsible leaders, business leaders, and personally as well. We have to. I mean, I wrote an article in the Forbes Tech Council about this. We cannot outsource the responsibility of responsible AI to governments, to whatever universities or big tech companies or small tech companies. We have to stand up, just like democracy, if I may say so. Every citizen has to protect it. And we cannot just say, oh, that's the regulator's job or this is the whatever, because it's not, it cannot be. It's such a complex technology that we can't just outsource our responsibility. So let me move to an area that I suspect is even closer to a Colombia audience's heart, which is like finance, investment. I presume most of us are investing and most of us are in kind of close to financial services in this discussion. And as Heather mentioned, that's what I do with LotusAI today. Like we advise amazing companies, asset managers on AI advisory, responsible AI, talent transformation, etc. And this is what I constantly discuss with my clients. So when AI goes wrong, the value destruction is very fast, and in fact, can be a showstopper to your business, to the business. So it's that serious. And if you see here some examples like a mid-market private equity firm, I intentionally anonymize the names. These are real examples and very recent examples like April 25, October 25, etc. So this firm had bias in their model, in a model that they developed, and they were just discriminating. They didn't put the impact assessments, the responsible AI operationalization in place, and they were basically discriminating against loan borrowers. For instance, they wouldn't give loans the same way they usually did to single moms, and so on and so forth. So they ended up with a penalty for 5 million, and of course reputational damage may be even bigger than that. Another investment manager in the UK this time built an in-house model, and then they ended up investing in underperforming assets and lost $4 million. And of course, they were also subject to scrutiny. And finally, something that unfortunately I do see a lot is AI washing. In other words, when companies, especially in fundraising periods and so on, claim they are doing this and this magic and that magic and etc. with AI, whereas they are not really doing much or not having actual impact or doesn't go further than POCs, then of course they also, this is actually 2 companies having this penalty. So it's very real. It's very real in our personal lives and professional lives. I just wanted to make that. And I think if you're an investor, I would highly, I teach, I'm a guest lecturer at London Business School. Literally last week, I taught this AI for M&A course, and we covered this. Responsible AI is not optional. It's literally protects the risk, protects the downside. It has to be calculated as part of your risk and valuation. And it, of course, protects or improves your exit opportunity. So it's not just, not only is it the right thing to do, but also it makes absolute business sense, especially in finance. So, are there any questions? May I move to just a super fast glance at what's happening with regulations or not happening with regulations? Are we good? Teresa
I
or
think
Heather?
we are good to move forward. No
Yep, I
questions
think we're
just
good.
yet.
Okay, let me move forward. So I try to explain this in a very, very simple way. Think cybersecurity. Cybersecurity is like 10 years ahead of AI in a sense, because today, pretty much any business leader, and I would say a professional at any level, would know that you have to be buttoned up in cybersecurity. If you have a company, you have to put, otherwise it's just a matter of you will get hacked. And it's just a matter of when, not if. It's as simple as that. So we have our cybersecurity protection, or we buy these things, we invest in them, and we get trained in them. AI is the same, simply the same. I mean, I've been in this space for 15 years, incubating the first algorithms for enterprise and then scaling them in AI engineering, Microsoft Research and an AI engineering team, and then scaling them with Fortune 500 companies. I helped with the OpenAI partnership, and I was part of the co-pilot team, etc., etc. All of those experiences, I can assure you that it will go wrong if we don't put the guardrails. The good news is we can put the guardrails. There's a profession called responsible AI and algorithm auditing to do exactly that. And if we look at the regulations, unfortunately, they are not keeping pace with the adoption, with the acceleration of this technology, and also uh, are the users adopting it so fast. So there is no, even with the best of intentions, they couldn't. And I remember many times I would go to Brussels or something, the EU commissioner, like, you have to regulate, you have to catch up, and so on. So, and a few days ago, some of you might have read, Anthropic is asking, this should be regulated or we should slow down. These are coming from the people who know this technology. So I think they should be taken seriously. Having said that, I want to go back to my comment in the beginning. It is still on us. Even if the regulations were up to date, even if they were perfect, as we all know, there can always be loopholes, there can always be some, fudging, if I may say so, of the regulation. So it still needs to be taken seriously. But the reality today, and let's have a very quick geographic scan, and it will be super fast because I want to leave time for questions and answers. What's happening? Let's have a very quick look. It's not super global, but I do have data on, of course, I do have more information if anyone is interested on Asia and so on, China and so forth. But in a nutshell, US had a stricter, as I'm sure my American or US based friends would know, had a stricter look on responsible AI and AI regulation governance during the Biden administration. That went 180 degrees the other way with the new administration. And then the interesting thing is, just a few days ago after the China trip, now that AI safety is back, because obviously people realized how, there's the geopolitical dynamics, but also frontier model security risks that are coming to place. And today, as you may have followed the news about Anthropic's Fable 5, my interpretation of all of that is, because there's no regulation, people are jumping in to fill in the gap, if that makes sense. We can discuss that if any of you are interested. But this is the state in the US. The wind was going this way, it went that way, and now it seems to be going another way again. In the UK and EU, so UK is has always been in the middle of EU and US, and still, like, they established their 50 actions, recommendations, etc. And earlier this year, they asked me, like, Didem, do these 50 recommend, are they actually actionable? What do you say? Like, just give us your honest view. And I did share some, actually two very tangible suggestions, but we can come to that another time as well. Basically, UK is kind of in the middle, trying to make it implementable, but still having not perfect, but at least they are trying to find a balance between innovation, not suffocating innovation, but also having guardrails. And of course, EU, for those who may have been familiar, EU AI Act, again, was established or with the best of intentions to put guardrails in place, but then it was almost not implementable. It was so complex, it still is. And given the latest geopolitical dynamics and how political AI has gotten, uh, some of you may have followed. There's new initiative called Digital Omnibus, which basically retracts not only EU AI Act but GDPR. But guess what? It doesn't retract yet. So the challenge is, I mean, we are trying to keep very close eye out on that because it's considerable amount. I would say half of our clients are EU or UK. The situation with the digital omnibus is that even the final decision of whether to retract or not will take 36 months. And that's a nightmare for my clients who are trying to value risk, right? How should they go about it? So our recommendation as LotusAI is to take the highway, be conservative, because that's the right thing to do anyways. But obviously, if I may say so, putting the guardrails in place is not suffocating innovation or technology. It is slowing down to speed up, perhaps, because I have seen over and over again when it's the other way, you will have a crisis. You will definitely face a catastrophe, and then you will slow down even worse, if that makes sense. So that's a super high level teaser, shall we say, outlook. So sorry, are there any questions? May I move to what does this mean? All of this that we are talking about, why it's so important?
I have a question from Ian Robinson.
Sure.
Ian is asking about how to educate regulators sufficiently quickly and in adequate depth so that they manage to come up with frameworks that encourage responsible AI but provide suitable guardrails with appropriate sanctions.
Fantastic question. So it's not, I mean, for instance, big tech companies, I know that, and I mentioned I used, I'm still asked for it. I don't want to say advice, but I am still asked for my recommendations, and not just UK government, but a few other governments. But so it's both ways. The governments are trying their best, but they have very limited sources. And especially big tech companies are also trying, at least some of them, if not all of them, trying. But then there is, there's always, I, I guess it's a sensitive topic. If a big tech company is sparing the resources to go to Brussels or whatever, uh, it's for their own agenda, of course, right? Also, in terms of training, I think that training question is a massive one. And in fact, it was one of the two, you hit the nail on the head, Ian. One of the two recommendations I made to the AI policy department in the UK government, in the sense that we cannot try to tackle upskilling, reskilling ourselves on AI one by one, or one small private equity firm by another one, or it has to be at scale. And for instance, a simple, I'm not sure if it's super simple, but that it should be practical enough, is why not give tax incentives to private sector to train their workforce? EU AI Act actually mandates training, AI training. To my awareness, the others don't. So this should include regulators, to your question. And I mean, it's not that they don't want to be trained. They are, at least the ones I interact with, are very hungry to be trained. But even that takes resources and time. So It's not the easiest. And then I think another practical reason why this is a challenging situation is the regulators are usually not from backgrounds in tech. I met one American gentleman in an AI conference 2 years ago who was a computer science engineer, for example, and he himself said, like, I'm the weirdo. So, anyways, I do want to move forward. We can definitely come back to this question if that's okay. So Heather had asked me in our briefing conversation, and I realized, okay, what is responsible AI? So let's define that very clearly. And this is not me defining it. This is a harmonized definition of OECD, World Economic Forum. I'm sorry, I'm missing one. NIST, American Institute, and also Microsoft Office of Responsible AI, which, if I may say so, is the pioneer in responsible AI. As I mentioned, even the term was coined by this team. So it is a social technical practice. Let me pause there immediately. It means it's very technical, it's very mathematical, and it's really difficult, actually. But it's at the same time, it involves humans, society, and processes. So it changes, it's dynamic. Responsible AI is not a one-off exercise. We don't do a one impact assessment to an AI system and say, look, we are done. Because data changes, the users change, the technology changes, the processes of that organization using that AI tool changes. Therefore, responsible AI itself is an ongoing process, ongoing practice. And it needs to be part of designing, deploying, and operating AI solutions. Whether you're using an off-the-shelf AI tool or a platform or building an agent or building an AI solution in-house, does not matter. It requires those guardrails. I'm sorry. So fair, transparent, accountable, safe, privacy respecting. These terms are a subset of what we call responsible AI principles that are mostly similar. I won't say common, completely common, but very similar across the world. But the right thing to do would be to debate which ones are must-haves for your organization. So we'll come to that when we discuss how to operationalize responsible AI. And then the last bit is the life cycle. So as I mentioned, AI systems are systems. It's even more so today with agentic AI than ever, because we are always talking about orchestrating agents, orchestrating systems. Think like, if you're not too familiar with agentic AI, think like ERP systems. It's a bit like having 100 ERP systems, which would be a nightmare. But you have to manage that. We have to not only manage that, but also humans using these tools, because we are also a little difficult to, shall we say, we differ in our values and cultures and understanding of ethics. And by the way, I should also mention, why don't we use the term ethical AI? I hear that a lot, and it really ruffles my feathers, if I may say so, because the term ethical AI, and we debated this for weeks, if not months, at the time in 2016 or something. Because what we, let's say in the West or in the US or in Europe, think as ethical may be different to someone in the Middle East, and that might be different to someone in China or Asia or whatever. So ethics is debatable. What I consider ethical, it might be different from Heather's definition of ethical. So we don't want that. What we want is responsible. Responsible is a common universal term that everybody gets. If I'm not responsible, bad things happen. That's why we use responsible AI. And then why? It builds trust and adoption. It removes the elephant in the room. I'm a mother. Of all these things that we do, the magic with AI, I care about my legacy. I care about my impact on society, and I care about how it will impact our children. So we have to make sure that it builds trust and is adopted in a responsible way. Of course, it reduces all these risks we discussed, and it actually accelerates scaling and value creation, especially in finance. Because if we don't do an AI and responsible AI due diligence before investing in a company, for example, I can assure you it will come back and hurt us. We will have speed bumps, if not crises on the way, not to mention exit opportunity being limited, the way things are going at least. Who's responsible for all of this? As I mentioned, I wrote, like, this is such an important topic. I wrote an article about who's responsible for responsible AI. And if you, I mean, we write AI policies, we help our clients with all of this, A to Z. But at a very high level, first of all, boards are on the hook, even if the regulations don't require them. And in most regulations, in most geographies, they do actually. But boards' main responsibility is to think about what can go wrong, and therefore they are on the hook. Usually, I mean, it's technical companies, technology companies, AI native companies for sure, but even in non-technology companies or AI companies, I would highly recommend an AI steering committee, responsible AI committee, task force, whatever we call it, but somebody there. And it should not be deep down in the organization or treated as a volunteer project by some enthusiasts, but actually it needs to be strong, visible, and reporting high up. And then even on top of that, and that's why I think some of our clients are treating us like AI help desk or responsible AI, you may need additional help. And I do recommend specialist firms. Like, unfortunately, I'm so sorry to say this, but there are many firms claiming to know responsible AI, and there are many shiny PowerPoints and whatever brochures, but it's actually very, very technical. I would highly recommend that you select your partners or advisors or your responsible AI board very carefully with people who really have done this and know what they are talking about. And of course, all of this has to be very well integrated with your risk management team or compliance officers. I'm hoping most of our companies have a risk register, so it has to be part of that natural holistic process. Did I miss anything on here? I think maybe the important bit here is this is a cross-functional group. It's not just compliance. Otherwise, it would be a very easy, short exercise. It would be a no to everything. It needs to be a balanced team of seeing the challenges or risks from different perspectives and coming to a balanced conclusion or balanced decision for your business, for that specific case. It's pretty much almost always case by case assessment. Sorry, are there any questions, or should I just move to how we go about doing this?
We did have a question come in the chat.
Sure.
From Dorothy. Dorothy asks, can you give us applicable examples of guardrails for small or simple for-profit organization using agentic AI, CFO, CTO best practices for a smaller company?
Yes, exactly. You read my mind, and Dorothy, thank you. Those are the slides I was just about to go through right now. So if I may start with first the journey, and then I will give some examples, and I hope it's applicable to all organizations, not just nonprofits. So responsible AI, the whole journey, I do want to remind you all, this is an ongoing function. So we need to treat it as such, just like HR, legal, cybersecurity. We don't just do them once and then get rid of them or something. It's an ongoing thing. It has a life of its own, therefore it has to be treated as such. And as pretty much anything else in business, it starts at the top. So to give you the Microsoft example, Office of Responsible AI directly reports to the CEO and the board, and I cannot imagine if it was reporting anywhere else. it would have been very difficult to say no to some indecent proposals from massive customers or government. So it really has to be at the top. The leaders, the management team has to understand that this is serious business and they have to take it seriously. Then the rest is business as usual, if I may say so. We just treat it as any business function. We form the team, as I mentioned, a kind of a responsible AI cross-functional team. And then that team, together with the sponsors, stakeholders, whoever, discuss what responsible AI principles they need to adopt for their organization. Now, if you're in banking, maybe, let me give another real example. 2 years ago, we had just started LotusAI, so almost in our first year, one of the top 3 banks in a country without AI regulations came to us, found us, and said, Didem, we have 400 AI systems. We know we are doing some things wrong. Help us. And we are not doing this because we are on the hook. This is not a compliance exercise because there isn't even a regulation yet. I mean, that government is working on their AI regulations, and I think they still are, by the way. But we know some things may go wrong. So that's exactly the journey. This is many journeys, but I'm just giving that specific example because I can share. And the very first thing is to debate, healthy debate on what are the principles that you feel fits best with your culture, your business strategy, your risks, etc., and your prioritization of those risks. So that's a very important discussion that needs to be held. And then based on those principles, we build or draft an AI policy or responsible AI policy. In fact, today, what I'm facing most commonly is our clients asking for 2 things. One is a policy, like a compliance document, and we know what happens to those documents. Because it's mandatory, maybe we read it once, but then they get shelved, I'm sorry to say. Then, therefore, they ask for a second document, which is the practical responsible AI guidelines, 1 or 2 page documents, where in my job, if I'm in the investment team or investor relations team or whatever, HR team, what could I unintentionally do? I don't want to get fired. So give me some practical examples of what I should be careful about. So that's like the second document. So those get built. And then the rest is again scorecards, red, amber, green, whatever you have. Where are we starting from? Where do we want to go? And you just build your development plan or checklist, whatever things. And these are available in plenty. I would say there are very reputable, trustworthy organizations, and I will share some in the resource section. But that's kind of just execution, just like anything else in business. And let's answer the second part of Dorothy's question. What would be some examples? Typically, there are 7 or 8 principles. I mean, you see 6. Sustainability is there. You could adopt that, obviously, because this technology is very destructive on the environment, has negative impact on climate change, and at the same time, it can help. Like in one of the companies I was leading AI at, I had PhDs working on sustainable AI, right? So it's a complex problem. It helps solve the problem, but it also exacerbates the problem. So whatever is your business about, or your strategy, your culture, your values, then you have to have that conversation to say, we are definitely going to be transparent. We are definitely going to be accountable. Another interesting thing I see is some organizations, some clients have an AI policy, or they think they have an AI policy, but there is no accountability. Like nobody is the actual named accountable person. Of course, it sounds a bit scary, but how can you have that? How can you have an AI policy without actually having that lineage of responsibility? So these are some of the things that you might want to think about. And to wrap up, I think I just was reading I think it was Stanford's report, Human AI Institute, which is one of my favorite like reports in of this industry. Absolutely fantastic, very reliable. And it just came, this 26th version just came out a few weeks ago. Um, I think 88 or 86% of all organizations are using AI at least in one business function, if not more. So we are at that state where this is becoming the norm. What is definitely missing is it differs by industry, but for example, in finance, only 18% of organizations in 25, if I remember correctly, have AI governance in place. And if we look at countries, governments, US, actually, Americans believe it was in one of the earlier slides. Let me just very, very quickly go back and show you. I think it was this one. Yeah, only 31% of Americans trust that their government will regulate AI, and it's the lowest of any nation. Singapore has one of the best responsible AI policies in the world as a government. If you're interested, I would recommend you to have a look. So it's at national, it's at country level, government level, but also organizational level, of course. So we have to do that. We have to agree on our principles as an organization or as a government, and then build our policy. What do we stand by? What are we committing to? What are we promising to do or not do? And then, of course, the rest is execution. I hope that was useful and practical. Um, we can also share these, and I should also add the AI incidents database. So if you want to report anything or inquire about anything, you could be building a new solution in an industry, for example. I would highly recommend you to check these incident data. What has gone wrong in object recognition, let's say, in AI for space or AI for defense? I definitely think it's worth checking before we build or deploy a new solution. I hope, I don't know how much time I took, but I hope that was useful.
No, that was great.
Thank you.
It was really
Um,
good.
Thank you, Heather. So I strongly believe that every AI solution has to be a responsible AI solution for business success, but also for our humanity. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are we taking questions? Oh, good. I have 15 minutes if anyone has any questions.
Hi, Didem. Yes, it looks like in the chat, Bitball has sent a message about education. So how do we bring all of this into education? Is it good that professionals are able to discuss and learn these things, but our education system is lacking adoption? To make responsible AI mainstream, how do we kind of bring this to our education systems?
Fantastic question, and again, something very close to my heart. And I was part of, in short, we published a paper on this. Very happy to share that if that helps. Basically, I was part of a committee of 100 leaders, education ministers, AI experts, and educators to discuss like AI's impact on education. How should education system as a whole change? This was a global thing, and we published last November. Um, and of course, responsible AI in education, where we are dealing with underage people, which is, of course, makes things even more complicated. So I just want to share in short that there are fantastic sources, fantastic thinking. You could also start with Microsoft Education Responsible AI or something. If you search, it will come up. Um, I'm not saying Microsoft because I was Microsoft, but simply because they truly have thought deeply and collaborated with leading educational institutions in this space, and there's good work. I think the challenge is how many people even know the term responsible AI? I think that's the biggest challenge. So I'm so grateful to our school and our women's circle for hosting this session, because it's not that people want to not to be, it's not that we don't want to be irresponsible. Many people don't even know there's such a concept, there's such a profession. So I'm happy to share more resources. Thank you for the question, but at high level, there is good thinking and practical applications. Um, Very happy to point you in a few directions if that helps.
Looks like Marianne also has a question
Sure.
about your opinions on Anthropic's initiatives in AI slowdown and if you think it will help make a difference.
Hmm. So, a couple of things, and these are genuinely my opinions. So I'm glad you used the term opinion. Um, I want to start with Mythos preview, private preview. So a couple of weeks ago, maybe a month ago, I don't remember, Anthropic announced their very powerful Mythos model, and they gave $100 million worth of tokens to some large organizations like Cisco and even their competitors to say, look, this is so powerful. Uh, Test it, button up your products because otherwise you'll be in trouble because your customers will be in trouble. It can identify the hacking opportunities, etc. And just, do what you need to do so we can launch. I was so impressed with this because I do know some of these personalities, some of these characters, obviously having been in the space, and I do try to spend a few months in the Bay Area every year. Um, and I genuinely couldn't help but wonder if it was another lab, another company, what would have happened? So I want to start with I do have huge respect. I do respect. Uh, Now, what happened in terms of them trying to stop, pause, etc.? It's their decision. I personally think that's not a practical request. It just won't happen. We may, I don't know, even if, let's say, US labs stop or slow down or something, I just think that's wishful thinking. That's not going to happen, even in a geography or anything. Now, what happened yesterday, today, as some of you may have followed, is that they tried to, in the absence of regulations and guidance from anybody who understands the technology and is kind of trustworthy to say, let's do this, because there's no debate or either in their environment. I think they tried to do their best to control the situation and then went too far. And went too far in terms of data, in terms of putting too much controls, etc. And what is too much, honestly, even I don't know because I don't know the context. I mean, they know things that we don't. When I was at Microsoft Research or AI engineering team, you're usually a couple of years ahead of rest of the world. Maybe in this case, 12 months, 18 months, I don't know. But they know something that makes them act that way. And just my opinion, because you asked my opinion, I'm grateful. Even though they're a startup, nobody's perfect. Uh, they may have overgone a bit on the limits of putting controls, but at least they are trying to put controls rather than just letting go and making money, like just being after the commercial side of things. I hope that made sense.
Um, Didem, it looks like we have two questions in the Q&A box, and it seems like they're both related to this idea of implementing education about responsible AI. So Adriana has a question about um, responsible AI guidelines and how it's then translated into programming, and whether or not responsible AI guidelines are really being brought to people who aren't currently in the workforce or maybe aren't um, as immediate, where this information is not as immediately available. And then
Hmm.
Margaret has a question about how much certification, such as AIPP or AIGP, for both knowledge and credentials is helpful or useful to someone in the field.
Yeah. Incredible. So let me start with the second one. I think it's incredibly useful and helpful, and I genuinely think it should be part of mandatory training. mandatory training for any AI engineers. I mean, the trainings, I'm an AI engineer, I'm an I think associate or something, but it doesn't matter. But basically, it was part of my training and certification programs. I'm not privy to all the universities or all the systems that teach AI today, but it does have to be part of mandatory training. I agree with you. Now, the ones that, for instance, I shared three resources in my last slide. One was a company, actually a niche, very boutique consulting firm called Babel AI, and they were our partners in Microsoft days, as well as my partner right now, LotusAI. And we are partners because they are really good in what they do. They have trainings all the way from super basic, what is responsible AI type thing, all the way to algorithm auditing and by region, by regulation, you name it, or agentic version or facial recognition. Very, very. So to my knowledge, there isn't anyone else doing that deep training as them. Maybe there are, but I haven't come across. So if you are interested, I would highly recommend to take that very seriously, and I can even do introductions if that helps. In terms of education of society or education, making this part of education curriculum at all levels, from primary school to wherever, um, I'm optimistic that that will come actually, because if we look at internet, my generation, I think internet was done when I was at university or something, or just beginning. So our generation did not have that much internet safety, those types of things. We kind of learned it on the way, whereas my son is literally from primary school onwards is taught internet safety. So I think it will be probably similar with AI. We will get there, uh, but it's still embryonic. And rest of the AI world is all about making money, fast money, more, or political fights. So there's not enough attention that is spent on this very important topic. And I think it again comes back to us as citizens, as users of this technology, to demand it, like to demand we want this in place, uh, but also to step up, right? Step up and just do our best to report things, notice things, don't take them for granted, and of course upskill ourselves. I hope that makes sense.
If anyone has any last questions for Didem, please feel free to utilize the chat feature or the Q&A feature on Zoom. And if not, we can wrap up the call.
I think I just saw a chat, Babu AI, Bamboo, not Bamboo, Babel. I just wrote it, Babel AI, helping us to changing with changes mostly. Changes daily in my view. Many points about ethics and responsibility, gender-based, extraordinary for us. Yeah, it is extraordinary for all of us. Thank you. Thank you for your interest and engagement.
It looks like we have one last question coming in through the Q&A box.
Sure.
Hansi says there can be a range of motivation at the leadership level when it comes to responsible AI, from being driven by trust, legacy, accountability, to those driven primarily by reputational signaling or optics. In your experience, how do you bring leaders who are starting from that more reputational place towards something more durable and driven by values?
Thank you. I'm so glad, Hansi, you asked this question because I realized I forgot that topic. I wanted to say something about that. So the best way to position responsible AI, in my experience, is cost avoidance. So unfortunately, because one of the things that is still not solved, or literally I asked London Business School professors to tackle this as a research project. What's the ROI of responsible AI? This is not measured yet, and it's super difficult. But I mean, both the experts and general public, I think, know in our gut, in our research, in our practical applications, that it has to be done. So the best way to position is a bit like sustainability, perhaps like the cost avoidance piece is very important. And if the leaders around you are unfortunately not getting it, I'm sorry to say they will experience a catastrophe which will force them to get it. And it happened to me in a very, I won't name it, but in a very, very large organization where we were literally begging for resources, like not much, a couple of contractors, a couple of headcounts or something like that, and we just couldn't get it. This I'm talking about an organization that was 130,000 people at that time. Like for that scale, I'm just asking for a couple of resources, and we could not get for months. And then something happened. Company was sued for $10 billion because of this. And guess what? Everybody open their budgets. So hopefully they won't that won't be the route that you experience, but that would be my recommendations. Sorry, another question, I think, right? Teresa?
Yes. What do you recommend for organizations to adopt AI governance that complies with AI regulatory standards like ISO, NIST, EUAI, etc.? And that's from Alan.
Yeah, Ellen, if you remember, I went through the journey slide, like how to start. I would first of all, it depends on where you are based and where you are serving. Like if let's say you're based in the US and you have customers in the EU, obviously that would be a consideration of how to go about it. But it genuinely starts with having your executive sponsor, forming your team, and then doing that due diligence of responsible AI in terms of which regulations. You don't have to cover all the regulations, but you do have to cover where you are servicing. So I would start with those. And then, is there a personal AI service? What personal AI services can we find for home use for data like contracts? I'm not sure if I understand the question, Stuart. Would you mind maybe speaking or? Teresa, do you? I'm seeing a chat. I'm seeing a question in the chat. Like, what personal AI services can we find for home use for data like contracts? Not sure if I'm following that. I'm sorry. You are most welcome to reach out on LinkedIn or my email. I shared it. Very happy to try my best to help. If I think we're running out of time too. Anyway. Are we good? My pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for your time and happy Friday, happy weekend to everyone.
Thank you, Didem. Thank you, everyone, for joining the call. I appreciate everyone's participation in this Women's Circle AI series from our EINT committee, and we hope to see you at a future event in the fall. Thank you, everyone.